document. Nothing is going to be decided tonight, but we do want feedback. I have some notes from conversations that I've had with others out in the community. So what I'd like is for Mike to come up and express your issues, and then if you would be, and then sit, and then we can discuss, and then I can invite you to come back up if that's good for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Mike Weigel. I'm a property owner here in Norwood. I've lived and worked here on and off since 1988. And I appreciate all the hard work that so many people have put into this. I always seem to come here and it feels like I'm against everything, and I know they're working hard and they're trying to do, and we're trying to make a good law here that helps everyone. So, but I also, I have a 29-unit building, two 24-unit buildings, and life there is different than in a single-family house. And we have 29 families there, and they get 7 calls before their warning in the present system, where 29 houses would get 58 calls. That's a huge disparity. Now, I've heard recently that it's going to be citations, tickets, or convictions, and it would be the date of the activity. I'm fine with that. I mean, all I ask is a chance. I'll evict people if I can evict them. Sometimes if I don't have the proper information, or I don't have a ticket or a citation, or I just have a police call, that I can't evict them for that. If I have a ticket, I can probably go to court and evict them. Now, I've been to court hundreds of times for evictions, maybe thousands, over long periods of years, so I know pretty good what the laws would be and what it takes to evict people. And as long as I'm given a chance, that's all I want, for my business to survive and for my 29 residents to be treated, families there to be treated fairly. But when it didn't say, of course, this is the old law, and I'm not reading what you guys have told me, so I'm wanting to understand. Maybe even hopefully make it more clear so a simple person can understand it. But I just need a chance, because I'll evict them. I will do. I do not have bad tenants. We evict. I mean, all the time. We ask for people to move just because there are problems even before. So
real specifically, your concern is you need it to be stated citation or ticket.
yes,
And you're
or
feeling
conviction
that
was the words that I've been told.
Okay, and your concern is that at this point, it doesn't read that way.
It does not read. They did
Okay.
scratch where
It does. So what I told you earlier when I called you before I had to get off the phone,
Yes.
I spoke to Keith Moore, and so the one you have, third page, 567.04, warning of possible chronic nuisance finding.
Right, slow down, where are you?
Third
Page
page,
3.
567.04, warning of a possible chronic nuisance finding. In the third and fourth line there, it says, findings by the Safety Service Director that there have been nuisance activities may be based upon filing of formal criminal charges. Mr. Moore made it clear to me, okay, those criminal charges are a ticket, a citation, an arrest, or a conviction. Mr. Gary, I know you're not Mr. Moore, but you are here.
True.
Is that stated? Is that what that expresses?
Do you see where he's talking about,
It
sir?
refers to the filing of formal criminal charges, and that would include a charge that leads to an arrest or a citation. So, yeah.
doesn't you have the word may there?
Yes.
So doesn't that mean that it may be based on actual convictions and it may not? Or am I just not really reading it?
That's what it says at this point.
Thank you.
So what if we take may out and say will be?
That's an option.
I still don't see where you're at. Apologies.
This is 56704A, third line.
You said page 3.
Oh, on mine it was.
Oh, that's because I'm on page 4.
Right here.
That's why I couldn't find it. Thank you.
So that, I think that clears the water, the mud a little bit. I think that makes it, hey, these things will be based on
It helps.
criminal charges.
I don't see why they just don't leave the one they scratched out, B, which now the present law there goes from A to C, put B back in, but just say for convictions, citations, or hell, even a letter, just something that gives me a little
Something.
oomph to go to court. You know what I mean? Because I'm not sure if it, you guys also want building department issues and health department issues. I don't know if those are citations and.
So with those, we ran this scenario earlier, right?
Yeah.
Say you guys just don't want to cut your grass. We come out, you get a letter, hey, cut your grass.
Is that a citation?
We give you a notice. No,
Okay.
let me finish, like I did earlier. We give you a notice, we give you a second notice, final notice. Then you get cited to court. That's a citation. Right?
Well,
So if
Right?
if it's not.
if that's what you tell me, I'm not arguing any of that.
That's a citation to mayor's court. That's a criminal charge.
My point would be a letter then. So you're gonna write 4 letters before you're even gonna call it a citation? I mean, not to, it's kind of.
That's for the
Arguing
health
from the
department,
backside.
that's for the health department with grass stuff.
Understood.
Building department has a similar process, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if one of Chief Kramer's guys come out and, 2 of your tenants are fighting in the parking lot, they're probably gonna be, I'm not a cop, so I don't know, probably be ticketed for fighting. That's a criminal charge.
And that's all fine.
One of his guys come out there and there's no fight, nothing's going on, there's no criminal charge, so there's no,
When the old law, that was a call for service though.
we're not
That
doing
makes
it based on call for
sense.
service. Does that make sense? More sense?
Yes, it does, but I think you ought to define a call for service and make it a citation, a ticket, or a letter. If you send me a letter, I've gotten a few things in my life from the health department and building department. One was for a gutter that needed clean. Didn't know about it. They sent me a letter. Within the 2 weeks or whatever they said, I wrote back, I fixed it and wrote back a letter, it's fixed.
Yeah.
I didn't wait for a citation or a second letter or,
Well, that's why we're not doing it that way, because we don't want to jam people up of, hey, there's a gutter messed up you didn't know about, we sent you a letter, and that shouldn't count as a nuisance activity. Some gutter
It's a
hanging
call
that
for
you didn't
service
know.
but if they don't fix it, I
Mike,
guess.
we're talking in circles a little bit on it, because we're not doing calls for service.
You're right. You're right.
Does that feel more clear?
It's more clear, yes.
Okay. What I would love is, we're gonna keep talking about this, and if you have additional questions, I'll make sure to check in with you. And then again, we're not finishing anything tonight, so you can get a copy and take another look at it if you have additional concerns. Because honestly, I think it's important that we have property owners like you giving their feedback, because I don't know what it's, the kind of challenges you have with a 29-unit building. So your input is very important, so I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. And I appreciate the good ideas here and trying to tighten it up and make it useful.
Yeah, in the end, I mean, I work there full-time Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 o'clock. I go there every day, and I work really hard on these 100 units to make sure that we are running a abiding property, a clean property that's run well. We vet, we make sure we get as good tenants as we can, and I go home every day at 5 o'clock. What happens after that, whether people are fighting, playing loud music, I mean, it's out of my control, and to be potentially penalized for that over time, if I even get word of it, I can do something about it. But if I don't get word of it, we can't do anything about it. Those are the things that we just, I hope that wouldn't be, and I know that we've clarified now that that would not be counted as a nuisance activity, I mean, unless they're cited, ticketed, or charged.
Yeah, the individual that's engaged in that will have a charge of some sort. Now, I'd like to add, I did get to speak with Mr. Crowley earlier today, who you guys work with. I'm not sure what capacity. He's a part of an association. He told me the same things, like you were concerned about that verbiage, and I think we addressed it. And he also even said that his legal team with that association had seen no issues with it, with this particular ordinance, but that you had that concern. I'm glad we were able to do that, because I think the properties like you guys that are looking after it, are helping us with this, are voice concerns. aren't the ones that are gonna have to worry about this ordinance. It's the ones that aren't. The ones that are neglectful, are absentee, don't care about the laws, don't care about what's going on, just trying to make a buck. Those are the ones that are gonna have to worry. If you guys are doing what you guys are doing over there like that, I don't think you guys have to worry at all. I think it's meant to help you guys get, better residents that are going to help control what's going on when you guys aren't there, It's gonna make it easier for you guys, I think.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you very much. I just don't want to get caught up in some web that I'm not able to get out of. I really think you ought to go back to what I said. If you get a letter, see if you fix your gutter, you've abated the problem. So it's no longer a chronic nuisance.
That's what it is.
No, you get a letter, but you don't get a nuisance violation from a letter. You get a nuisance violation when you ignore the letters, don't fix the problem, and then get cited to mayor's court.
I think that ought to be tighter myself, because when I get a letter, and obviously, this is where judgment does come in. If I call them and they give me 2 weeks to fix the gutter, and my gutter guy says I can't get there till the end of the month, all I have to do is call them, and I usually put it in writing.
Yeah, well, let's...
I need 2 more weeks, please, and they say, fine.
Let's slow down on making it a little tighter, because I know, Mike, I don't want you getting,
Well, you know, I'm just,
Throwing out ideas.
yes, that's really,
Well, would it be easiest if we go through it from beginning to end, or,
well, you've had concerns about...
I had a
resident
couple,
concern.
let's see. Oh, did my laptop just die? Awesome. So one of the questions, I was talking to some Xavier folks, and one of the concerns was, should be an easy one. If a 18-year-old gets ticketed, cited for underage drinking, what is the consequence for that? Do they go to mayor's court and it disappears? Does it go on their permanent record? This is sort of a part of the nuisance ordinance, but
The 18-year-old can be cited in the mayor's court under the city code, can also be cited into the municipal court under either the city code or the state code. It would be more likely the state code. It would, if the person's convicted, it will be put on their record, and at some point they'd have an opportunity to expunge that record.
okay.
The mayor's court has used a diversion program before, which has included things like a couple of days of community service and a processing fee to pay somebody to supervise the community service. And then when that gets completed, then the charge gets dismissed against the...
And is that up to
person,
the
whether
mayor's discretion?
It's not the mayor, it's the...
Or mayor's court, sorry,
It's the
the
magistrate's
magistrate.
discretion, and it starts with the prosecutor's discretion as to whether we're going to offer that or not.
Okay.
Okay?
Is this a concern based on the individual, or if it happens at a property?
It was more targeted to the individual. As we were talking about this, that was one of the questions that came up.
Well, it wouldn't really
So-
pertain to this ordinance unless it happened at a house. If he's walking down the street.
It would be at a house. They have like the big house parties, and the cops roll up and they see the,
Well, if it's at a house party, yeah, then it would be
right.
under this. But if he's like walking from house to house and it's on the street, then
Right, but my question is still, what happens to that student who gets cited?
I will tell you that there haven't been many of those cases filed in mayor's court recently.
Okay,
Just haven't.
okay.
There have been some, a few years ago, but as far as I know, I'm not remembering even any this year
Okay.
so far.
Chief, how often do you guys cite someone for underage drinking?
I don't know. I mean, I would just be taking a guess.
Okay.
I think...
Similar, not often?
It's not that often. I mean, I think most of the times when they get there, cups hit the ground and people scatter and, they're just trying to take care of usually it's a noise complaint, trying to take care of that problem at hand. So, we've definitely, I'm certain this year we've cited people for underage drinking. I mean, I feel pretty certain, I couldn't say for sure, but I know we have in the past.
Okay.
Generally, they'd probably be charged under the state code because the municipal court has more tools to deal with things like drinking than the mayor's court has.
Okay.
The mayor's court doesn't have a probation officer, for example. The municipal court has a stable full of them, and some of them are assigned to things like substance abuse. And so those probationers get assigned to those probation officers who can then say, we're going to have you screened for your alcohol problem, and we're going to find something suitable for you to deal with, to be, treatment or counseling or,
What have
you'll
you.
have to go through an alcohol influence report or whatever, or program or whatever. But unfortunately, the mayor's court doesn't have the staff to deal with that kind of thing. So
Okay.
if there's anything that appears to require alcohol treatment, for example, it'd probably be filed in the municipal court.
Most likely.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if underage drinking is it under nuisance activities in this? I'm looking at the Norwood code that it cites,
Nuisance
and I don't see
activities.
underage drinking in it. So I don't know if that would actually fall.
Not even in there? I
Would it not
guess
be
I was thinking
would it
under
not be a
criminal
drug offense?
conduct.
Oh wait, where's criminal? Well, it wouldn't be a drug offense is drugs, not the revised code section we cite for drugs is like the drug statute. So I don't know if underage drinking, unless like they're disturbing the peace in addition. Because now I'm looking through the Norwood code and I don't, in chapter 509, and it doesn't have underage drinking either. So I actually don't.
Oh, okay.
There's public intoxication,
Right. And disorderly conduct and
disorderly
intoxication.
conduct, and
But I don't think an underage ticket actually would qualify.
Okay.
what's called disorderly house, which is sometimes used.
That would fall.
Sounds like we need to add that in.
Sometimes that is used for these big parties that don't disperse, and
Right.
the tenants
Yeah, failure
or
to
the
disperse
owners
is in here.
get charged with disorderly house. But again, that hasn't happened recently, as far as
Right.
I know.
Okay.
When I say recently, in the last couple of years.
Does that feel like something we should, Mr. Kelch suggested we put that in there? So you're one of the attorneys here. You're saying it would not go
I don't-
under criminal activities?
I don't think
Because
like the
it's-
underage drinking ticket would. Because we don't have it cited in the Norwood statute. And then all of, like I said, the drug ordinance, the 2947 or whatever that is.
Is that where we're going, like, we need to include that?
What?
Is that something like you saying we need to?
I'm
we should
fine
include?
without I think that would actually, I don't know. If I were a landlord who rented to Xavier students, I wouldn't want that included. Also, I feel like underage drinking tickets are pretty common. I never got one either, but.
Well, if we ask all the landlords that rent Xavier students, yeah, they'd be like, yeah, sure, don't include that. What are you talking about?
That's what yeah. So I'm fine with it as it is. I'm just saying I don't know
Okay.
if they need to worry about it with the
Okay.
statute as it, with
Fair.
what we have now.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
Mr. Chief Kramer, how often do you guys end up citing Xavier students for underage drinking at these parties? Is that
Just, again, I couldn't tell you. I don't think it happens all that often. I mean, and I'm trying to remember, honestly, if it's underage possession or underage consumption. I thought it used to be underage consumption, and they actually wanted you to see them consume it.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes, you just don't see that. Like I said, there's a lot of times people dropping their cups. I don't think it happens all that often.
So we may not need it, and I don't know if they need to worry about it.
Okay, what about is public intoxication?
That is under the Norwood statute I'm looking at. Code 509
Okay.
is what we have cited, and it includes riot, inciting violence, failure to disperse, disorderly conduct and intoxication, disturbing a lawful meeting,
Okay,
inducing panic, making false alarms. Those all sound much worse to me than underage drinking.
agreed.
Well, I mean, they sound worse than underage drinking, but underage drinking is still a nuisance
Sure,
And
You know.
illegal.
and illegal, you know.
but
I mean, is there harm in adding it? I don't think it's much extra work other than just adding a line.
I don't know what the Ohio code section for it is, but I mean, I'm not inherently against it. I just don't know. If it's not an issue, I don't know if we need to put it in.
Well, why don't we think about it? I'll make a note with question mark. And then Alexis, I know that you had some thoughts about what you wanted to add.
Yeah, I took a glance at the Cincinnati nuisance ordinance, for the city, and they just had a section, and I gave you all a copy. I don't think I gave you one, Chief, sorry, I didn't
That's
anticipate.
right, that's right.
But it just has, it reads that it would be unlawful for a landlord to terminate a lease agreement or periodic tenancy without good cause or otherwise retaliate against any tenant because the tenant complained to the police or another city official or employee about nuisance or criminal activities on the landlord's premises. Which I think that would just be good to toss in. So, that was my concern when we were here last time, was retaliatory evictions.
Right.
Yeah.
Because tenants are calling to say, like, my landlord's not doing this, that, or the other. So, I would like to throw that in just for tenant protection.
I got a chance to glance at it, and I thought we had something like that in here. Maybe I didn't want
see
to ask
it.
before we were live.
Yeah, I didn't
but
see
maybe it's
anything.
a stronger version of that, which kind of protects people from.
I know we mentioned a Good Samaritan issue last time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had a whole section for it. So,
Right.
I said, like most lawyers, I'm fine with copying other people's work. So, I would be excited if we added something very similar to this. Did I give you a copy, Mr. Gary?
Yes, I have one.
Okay. And then, of course, we just wouldn't include their section about the Cincinnati Municipal Code, because I don't think we
Right.
have anything like that.
Yeah, I'm fine with the verbiage there. I think it makes
Okay.
it strong. I think it helps protect from that kind of thing. And that's something in the original workings of this that we wanted to make sure was protected and covered, so.
I don't see it in the one we have.
I don't think we
currently.
have it. I did skim it a lot this week.
Yeah.
So,
Remember that, I think it was the original 13-page
so
ordinance.
this will only be an extra paragraph, so
Yeah.
So
I would like to have it if
can
everyone's
we
in agreement.
agree? Are you good with that, Eric? Put that
Yeah.
in there? What do you think, Mr. Gary?
I think it makes sense.
Okay.
I think I mean, I know it's intended to do, and I think it would probably accomplish that purpose.
Yeah.
I know Mr. Couch met with Chief Kramer. Can you give us a summation of what you guys talked about, if you had thoughts about this?
So, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for Mr. Kramer. What we just kind of talked about was just kind of skimming over the changes that we're making, mainly from Chief Kramer and his designee sent out letters to the Safety Service Director, sent out letters. And one thing we did talk about, and I asked about, was, because we had some hang up on the drugs, the felony drug stuff, and how often they have, you know, like kind of like errant convictions or arrests or anything like that. And just kind of the investigation process that goes into those things, and what they do. And it didn't seem to me like a pressing issue, something that is going to happen a lot, you know, because they seem to me like they do their homework. And I'll let Chief Kramer go further into that kind of thing.
Yeah, if I remember the conversation correctly, I mean, our patrol doesn't make a lot of drug arrests out of a residence or an apartment. That usually happens with our drug task force, and that involves, you know, long investigations. In fact, it's one of the complaints that when somebody has a problem with, you know, maybe somebody dealing drugs, you know, it's just taking a long time, and it just, unfortunately, it does, but that's because we need to make sure that we have everything done properly. So, you know, it's a matter of making buys, and it takes a long time, so it's generally not an issue. I can't remember exactly what.
So the concern that we had was, let's say, Tom is arrested for buying, so it has to be felonious, right? So it wouldn't be like an ounce of weed, it would be
It'd
like
have to be more than.
yeah, so some illegal amount, some quantity, a pound of weed. Does it come in pounds?
It does.
It does. Okay, good.
I know that from
So-
court, not from being charged.
So I'm arrested, so Tom is arrested. And so then that would be potentially one of the dings for the property. But let's say it turns out there was a problem with the arrest, or it wasn't really his car, or whatever, so the eviction gets tossed out, or not the conviction, the arrest gets thrown out and he is released. Our concern was that would still be a ding on the property if it was not if it didn't end up being an actual conviction.
I think that's addressed in 567.07 under the burden of proof and affirmative defenses. B says that the city of Norwood shall be deemed to have failed to have met this standard if the owner demonstrates by a preponderance of the evidence that subsection 4, for nuisance activities premised upon a criminal charge, the criminal charge was resolved without a finding of guilty of a
Okay.
nuisance activity under the chapter.
Perfect.
I love that addition.
Thank you.
Sure.
It was legal language, so it wasn't as clear to me. That makes sense. And then the numbers for the dollar right under that, is everyone comfortable with those changes? They're a little more in, they're a little more stacked appropriately.
That
was the
was
belief.
recommended by
No,
Safety
or-
Service
yeah.
Director Powers
Right.
as more
Appropriate
graduated, if
laddering.
you will,
Yeah.
more consistent, so instead of a $100 step followed by a $250 step followed by, or a $450 step followed by a $250 step followed by a $2,000 step, all the steps are the same, essentially.
Yeah, and when I talked to him too, it was more graduated as well as less facetious kind of, where a judge might toss that out because it seems unfair or cruel.
Random or, yeah.
It's consistent with how Ohio fines misdemeanor offenses. So it can be 150 for a minor misdemeanor, 250 for an M4, 500 for an M3, 750 for an M2, 1,000 for an M1.
Okay. Chief, did you have a chance to take a look at this new one?
No, I have
Okay.
not seen it. I mean, we did talk about it. I mean, it seems like, I had some concerns about the calls for service and just, somebody just didn't like their neighbor and constantly call knowing. So it seems like that's been taken care of. It seems like it's definitely tightened up and a little better, I think, and it's not really an issue with this. I think tracking is something that we're going to have to figure out how to do. So, like how we're going to track it.
How we're going to count the numbers and.
Yeah, I mean, just so many times, by the time we realize we have a nuisance property, it's already gotten out of hand. Because sometimes it's a day shift officer that makes a couple runs on it, but he's not aware that night shift was making runs too, or it was another off-day group, and you don't realize it. And you may not know that the building department has been, and the health department have been up there. So I don't know how usually we find out we have a problem, and then we start tracking it because somebody calls and says, what are you going to do about this property? And then we start looking into it, like, oh yeah, this is a problem. We've been there a lot. So how we can take care of that, I don't know. I don't think there's a real easy way.
Yeah. And I've had some thought on that because that's one thing that where the last committee or council on a committee before we kind of ended with was trying to find like a software or a program that can be used. And I think something that we should kind of be wary of is cost. Software is cost. So if we could find a software that would allow us to do this, that at least one of these kind of 3 pillar departments involved in this could also use, I think would be beneficial. Versus, obviously we don't want to be armed in this with like a Google Doc or a shared Excel sheet. I don't think that would be
You don't want to
very
do Google
wise.
Doc?
So,
We did discover that the C-Click Fic does not store information, correct?
that I'm not sure. Clint Zimmerman does a lot of work with that. I think he would know. We can ask him.
I'm not. Kyle and Jerry, Kyle Beck
yeah,
and Jerry
Norcom.
Smith are the ones that administer it. So
Yeah.
I know for certain that they can answer that question.
Okay.
And also, I think we should ask them about softwares that maybe one of these departments can use. I know they've searched for some softwares in the past for us. you know, and they kind of keep their ear to the ground on those things. I think they would be good resources for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I think of software, then I don't know how that would work, because we would have to, I guess, dump our data from our RMS somehow into that, and I don't know how the building department does. I just think that probably, and I could be wrong, maybe there is something out there, it's just gonna be when a council person or we get a call saying, are you guys gonna do something? And then we can certainly backtrack, and we can go back and look and say, okay, well, you know,
This
we did
is, they're at
cite.
number 4.
Yeah, but you know, if there's something out there that's great, I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
One
Define-
thing we might behoove us to do too is give us some of these cities like Cincinnati, Middletown, other cities that have something like this. They obviously track it some way.
If,
You know, what do they use that might?
Cincinnati they do a lot of like nuisance property work in the common police court, and I think they actually do operate on like, everyone knows when there's a problem property, and I think it is unfortunate. I don't know, they might have something that collects data, but the houses in Cincinnati that are.
It's just something like, say, like something like the building department can really get the meat out of, but health department and police department have access to, and maybe, you know, before the officers leave, I mean, they got a lot of work to like write the reports and that, I'm sure. But maybe just updating that into this system, boom, and then going home, you know what I mean? So it's kind of tracked, I don't know. If we could find something like that, I think that
That'd
would
be great if it could be see, click, fix, because the building department and
Well,
the
and
health
we already have
department,
it.
and we already have it. I don't know if that would be too much work for the officer to do a see, click, fix. But it would need to be internal, not external.
Yeah.
Because if I take a picture of garbage, then that's shared. I'm not gonna share a picture of Tom being arrested, right?
And I mean, as we go further, I don't know if we're there yet, but that is one of the things that really kind of, I think, stifled the enforceability of this and the implementation of it, because how are we gonna track it? You know, if we're not tracking it, we get jammed up, we're not organized, we don't have it together, it could look bad. So I think that's something, as we're having these meetings, or as we're cleaning this up, that's something I think we need to really kind of look for now.
I mean, it's opening up a broader discussion of just general records keeping for the entire city. The fact that, I have to believe that somewhere out there is a software that multiple city departments can plug their information to, and they can be easily searched by address. You know, I mean, I think that's kind of what y'all are suggesting. I don't know what that is, but, you know, and like I said, it might be a broader discussion, but the building department should be able to enter data into a system that the health department is also entering data into, that the police and fire, I mean,
Yeah.
it just
And
makes
I
sense to me.
mentioned like software the building department you could use, because I know they do a lot with like looking up addresses. And they
Right.
have, I mean, the police department, they go to the address and that, but I'm pretty sure you guys kind of don't Google it before you go. You guys probably know where you're going,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think like something like at least that the building department could use, because they do a lot with specific addresses and that. But I see what you're saying as well, is where maybe it's something everybody can use.
Right, some kind of central
Yeah.
system that if the building department is giving a citation to a property, they're gonna put that property address into somewhere. The health department is giving a citation to a property, that's going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
If the police officer is writing a citation at a property, that address is going to go somewhere. I'm saying
And
that
they're all
maybe there's a
siloed.
system
What
that
I
can
think
aggregate
is
all
like
of
the
that.
only downside of that is like, because the building department and health department, they're doing right there from their work computers here that's tied into that. It's where the police department, I'm not sure if that would be possible, because I know you guys got laptops in your cars, right? So, I mean, I don't know if that could be tied into the system as well, or if they would have to come back and then get on a computer and do all that, you know?
Yeah,
I don't-
Right,
definitely,
That might be a dump, a data dump or
Yeah,
something.
Definitely the data from our MDCs we couldn't do it from the terminals in the car. It was hard enough working with our CIC to even get our CAD system put on. They're very particular, but we could dump it from our RMS. We would just have to work out that none of the confidential information was to get out there. You know, there very well could be something. I just think in the meantime, I mean, probably communication is just gonna be key. You know, if the building department has a problem property, checking with the police, like, hey, are you making runs here, and going to the health department, and vice versa. Like, I don't, like, if we have a complaint about a department, I just look back on ours. I have not generally gone to the building department or the health department and said, are you guys having any issues here? That's something that maybe we should start doing, and until we can figure out a better way to do it.
Hey, I don't see any negatives in more communication.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
And maybe it needs to start as a Google Doc as we first roll it out, and then
Yeah.
it can develop into something more professional
When it grows
and
up.
substantial. Yeah, when it grows up.
Jerry and Kyle would really,
Yeah, they're great.
There could be something, I think it's, the C-Click Fix is part of that Civic.
Civic Plus, Civic.
And they have a lot of different programs, so they very well may have something that works. I have no clue, but I do know they have a lot of different programs.
Okay, do you want me to talk to them, or do you want to talk to them?
I don't mind, I can go down there. I gotta go down there to try to get my email fixed anyway. So
Oh, okay. Well, I will assign that to
still
you.
working that out.
Or TA, I mean, they all,
Go. Okay. What else do we need to take a look at on this?
Is that all the, kind of questions you had from?
Yeah, I've had more, but they're not for this, they're for other stuff.
Yeah.
It was a long list, but it was only one for here.
I have nothing else. I think, you know, we kind of cleared up what we need to clear up. I think, you know, especially having Mike, you know, get his questions answered. You know, the addition of this, I didn't know this was coming, which I really like. I think that makes it even better, because last thing we want is people scared to speak up. and say
Absolutely.
things, You know, so,
Yeah.
and, you know, I had siblings years back that were in a situation like that where, you know, anytime they would say something, they'd be threatened with being put out on the street, and they don't have money to go get another apartment. You know, so I really like this, and I'm glad we have that, so thank you, Ms. Royce, for that. You know, law school
what I
paid
do.
off you,
It's what I went for.
you know?
Moments
Just for
like
moment.
this.
I'd like to invite, if you have any other thoughts or questions based on this conversation.
I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate it. So,
Awesome.
I feel like you got on a good track. I think you can tighten up even more things. Well, all I want is a chance. If I don't act right once I'm given a chance, that's a different
That's
subject.
for sure.
But if I gotta get 4 letters before it's a citation, you guys are working through it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll find.
Well, that's also just stuff like grass and all that, because it's like, so Mr. Shelley, he works in the health department, he does a lot of that stuff, and I've worked with him a lot on, like, neighbors call me, and I'm not talking like one neighbor. I'll drive, if I got one neighbor calling, I'll drive by myself and give it a look before I just go get a hold of him. But I've had like 4 or 5 situations in the last 3 years I've had where not one neighbor, but 3 or 4 are like, hey, can you come meet up with us at so-and-so's house? And they're sharing pictures, and we're going and peeking, and it's like, whoa. So he wants to give people like opportunities to get it fixed. Maybe it's an elderly person, maybe they're handicapped or something like that. And in those instances, you know, the city will work with him. He works great. I'm not sure if you've had any encounters with him. Like you said, hey, I got Mr. Shelby in the health department. He does. He goes out and does the grass stuff,
Jim
garbage stuff. Yeah. And you know, if you, like you said, if you call him and say, hey, my guy can't get out here for like 3 weeks, he's going to give you that time. You know, so I think to put it like, oh, you get a letter or something like that is against you. I think that's against what we're really wanting to do, because we're not wanting to jam people up inadvertently, even that just maybe don't have the means, don't have the time, and they just need a minute or they need some help. What we're trying to get is these absentee landlords that aren't caring about the property, aren't trying to even work with the city, the ones that will just rent to anybody that has money in their hand and don't care what your background is or who you're bringing here, or don't have guys like, you know, your property manager here that are even at the property for any point of time. You know, those kind of properties is where this is geared towards. So I think doing that would, it would tighten it up certainly, but I think it would just inadvertently do more harm than good.
You're
My
thinking
way.
about it, and I'm just
Yeah.
throwing it out there. I mean, you're looking at it from a different point of view, and I get it.
Because I mean, we talked about that when, not you, but Mr. Tracy and I and other people, when we originally put this together, and you know, it wasn't fair Cause that's like a cop goes out, to me, that's like a service, call for service when a cop comes out, gives you a warning. You're having a party, you're a little loud, hey guys, keep it down. It's almost like that. Now that's against you. And then you come back again at night, that's 2, like, it was just like, we'll do it, citations to mayor's court, because if you get cited to mayor's court for something like that, you are grossly neglecting the process. That's like a month worth of, hey, do this, hey, get this done, hey, get that done. You could have already called, you could have already gotten help from us as a city, you could have already, called somebody and then called us and said, hey, it's gonna get done, get a little bit more time, you've done none of that at that point. So we felt that was fair, if that answers your question.
Yeah. Spitballing. I
I
appreciate
think the other exciting thing I think about this whole thing is that these can be living documents. So if we do this and 3 years later, we're like, wow, okay, this is not working, what do we need to do? Maybe it's we need to switch that up. So we have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Hopefully this will get you where you want to go. And all distribute all that. Thank
how
you.
the sausage is made.
Well, and by now, you should know this thing inside out.
See,
Especially since it's shorter.
It's not 13 pages.
this was one of my speeches. I've been here since '88. And actually, none of your faces were familiar in '88.
I was 1.
I'm not saying you weren't here, but
Well, that was mean.
I'm saying I was 1 years old.
I know, I'm just saying that was mean.
Why?
so I've been through a lot of things.
I was
and
in
then
high
you go
school.
further down the road, and your faces aren't here next time this fall is being read, and someone's trying to read this and understand. I've been before those places too. And
Well, I can definitely speak. I've done a lot of work on this. Other people that aren't here have done a lot of work on this. Mr. Gary and Mr. Moore have done a lot of work on this also. And it wasn't always nice. It was back and forth a lot. It was, hey, man, we want this in. We can't have that. We got to do it this way and word it this way. So it's not interpreted poorly. So it's less subjective, more objective. And Mr. Gary's done a lot of that. This was, I think, 13, 15 pages when you first got it.
It was longer.
So we done a lot of work to kind of make it make more sense and make it do what we need it to do and have kind of less, inadvertent blowback.
I'm looking forward to the next version that corrects and may not, and makes it more clear.
567.04, so that way you go right to it when you get it.
I'll be looking.
So why don't we go ahead and we can make the additions and the changes, and you can look into how we can, and I don't know, should we have tracking as part of the ordinance, or is that just sort of
No, I think,
separate? We'll just
Sorry.
figure that out on the backside.
I don't know that needs to really be in it as part of it. I just think it's something we need to be conscious about and include in these conversations of when we do kind of go and set this thing out, we have a way to manage it. I just think that's good kind of housekeeping for us. And maybe include more people like Chief Kramer, Mr. Powers, and those people that are going to be using it.
So let's make sure that Powers and Chief, you guys get copies. I think it's helpful to kind of figure out what are the potential holes in it, pitfalls, and then we can revisit it in the beginning of in September. Does that give you enough time?
Yeah, so I'm looking, I don't know if September 7th is too early. We have a DI meeting at 5:30, 6:30 that day. That's Wednesday.
September the 7th?
Yeah, would that be
Do after that?
6:30? Yeah, I'm fine. Wednesdays are great for me right now.
Can we do 7? Just because I'm thinking the DEI meeting might go long.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, 7 o'clock, September the 7th. Does that work for you, sir?
Yes.
I know that's late, sorry.
You want me here?
I would love it if you,
Hold on. Let me just-
you can come straight from yoga.
Yeah, that should be good. The only thing, if I My wife has not inputted my daughter's volleyball games. If that's her first game, I want to be there, but I can have somebody here in my place.
Okay,
that
that'd be
can- That
great.
can speak for me. So what time are we talking?
7 PM on
Okay.
Wednesday, the 7th. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And we are, oh, and then I guess, oh, what was the other thing on the thing? Oh, address the council, and you guys already spoke. Cool.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and we're done.
All right, thank you.
It's like, what's the other thing on the agenda?